In this lesson, we're going to talk about how messaging can influence product and help you cut through the noise. So just because you build a product does not mean anyone will notice or care, because there is so much noise, there are so many products, and there are so many ads. We're exposed to over 5,000 ads per day, and in order to cope, our brains have adapted by tuning out and thin slicing if something is relevant to us. So in order to cut through that noise and capture attention, you have to differentiate your product, your story, and your messaging from your competitors, and communicate your value for how you solve problems for them. This is really hard to do, and differentiated positioning and messaging typically can't be done after the fact or very quickly. So when companies are entering a crowded market, and let's be honest, most are, you can tell if they didn't nail their positioning and messaging early on because they only have table stake features, and they're usually light on those, and they have no unique messaging. So they're left to differentiate on price. If you see free for 6 months, it's a telltale sign that product built their product without thinking about the go-to-market strategy or their positioning and messaging. So how do we cut through the noise? You got to find the story that only you can tell. Often this is rooted in your mission and your product differentiator. And I'll talk through an example from during my time at Intercom. So at Intercom, I was a product marketer there back in the day. I was launching support products for them. We were working on the Help Center product, which didn't exist yet. At the time, they just had the inbox. And we knew that because Intercom's mission is to make internet business personal, and their product differentiator is the Intercom Messenger, that our story for this product would involve those two components. And at the time, Zendesk was the clear leader in support and help centers, and so we knew we had a long way to go before we could win in the market there. And so we really focused early on, before the product was even built, on our messaging and story, so that we could, even at time of launch, even though we'd be light on features, we could maybe make a bit of a splash and capture some eyes. So to come up with our story only we could tell, we use a concept called the feature press release, which was popularized by Amazon. So the feature press release helps you craft a strong product story before product development even starts. So when we looked around at the market, including Zendesk's Help Center, we saw some problems with the way things were running generally. Help centers were used as a gatekeeper, creating roadblocks and dead ends for users. And then we also noticed that if an article was unhelpful, there was no easy way to communicate that you'd read the article and ask for further help from the company. And when you did figure out how to contact support, they often suggested the same article that you literally just read. Keeping these things in mind, keeping our mission and the product differentiator in mind, we decided that the story we'd come out of the gates with was that this help center would be the most personal, connected, and intelligent knowledge base on the market. And so product agreed on this story, and they started scoping features based on this story. So we didn't build tables and nested lists in the Help Center. We didn't have an API or really many integrations. We didn't have localization or advanced analytics. We scrapped all of that in favor of a great message and a differentiated story. What we did build into the product was that you could see who the author of the article was and when it was last updated. We made sure that the article itself was embeddable as content in the messenger, and that we would suggest articles for support reps, and that there would be actionable feedback for authors who were creating content so they would know how to improve their content, and that there would be no dead ends or repeated content for end users. So how did this translate into messaging in the story? So you might suspect if we were pitching table stake features, we would say, hey, it has a robust article composer, or that you can integrate with any support tool, or support multiple languages, or it has powerful analytics. We didn't do any of that. We said our messaging, we would want to build a trusted help center, that it would be integrated across the entire Intercom platform, that reps would be able to respond faster with suggested articles, and that you'd know how to improve your content, and that it would be the best possible experience for your customers. Walking the cat back just even a little bit more, how do we get to this messaging? So usually the product team will come up with some kind of problem statement for what they're solving, why, and this looks different at every company, so we won't get into it. But the press release, there's a template for it, and it's just heading, subhead, summary, problem, solution, leadership quote, how to get started, and a customer quote. So what you're filling out here is you want to write like your ideal story and what could be your unique story, that value that only you can provide, something really differentiated. So this is just a basic template for that. And once you build this press release, and if product agrees upon it, and product is building those features and marketing is building that messaging for it, once you come together to launch, you can do something really compelling. Help Center articles launched in December of 2016. It was a really big hit. We were like #1 product of the day. Really, a lot of features that we said we would build, we built, so that the story ended up ringing true. We didn't have to change it at the end. And the product was really successful. I think it did like 5 million AR in the first 8 months. And when we finally launched, it was what a knowledge base should be, personal and intelligent. So we weren't trying to compete on features. We weren't saying we had more features than Zendesk. We certainly didn't. But this was a story we could tell, that we could stand behind, and we built a product to stand behind this message. Okay, so I think hopefully by now you understand the difference between positioning, messaging, and copywriting. You've seen a little bit of the impact of what great messaging can do. And so we'll cover this throughout the rest of the course, but at a high level, how to craft your messaging and cut through the noise. First, you have to understand who are your competitors, what is their product like, and what key messages do they say? What are the market trends? What's going on in your industry and your category? What are the jobs to be done? What does your audience need? What is their pain point that you're solving for? You'll need to define personas, who you're selling to. Your positioning, which is where your product fits in the market, who you serve, what you're doing, and how you're different. You'll need to define your pitch, how you hook your audience with your value proposition, and then your key messaging, how do you communicate your story, your benefits, and your feature. And once you've taken your best shot at crafting value props and compelling messaging, next you need to validate, test, and iterate. So my recommendations are to interview prospects and customers. You could run B2B buyer surveys and test your messaging with Winter. You could try running small ad campaigns to compare value props and see what converts better. You could even work with 1 to 2 top salespeople to try to figure out some new key messages and see how it lands with prospects. Once you're feeling really good about your positioning and messaging, it's time to go into execution mode. So you can craft your go-to-market plan, like what activities are you going to do, where will you do them, what will you be saying. You can start making landing pages, your sales pitch deck, your 2-pagers. You can start updating your social accounts. All of these things are so much easier to do when you have your positioning and messaging in place. So the B2B messaging course will walk you through all of this so that you can craft a story that cuts through the noise and drives prospects to buy what you've built.